Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. My name is Andrew Claudio, a.k.a. GMAC, and it is time to preview another Knicks matchup, this time for the first time since opening night against the Boston Celtics, a matchup at the building that the planet knows as the Garden, unless you live in Dorchester, a Southie, a Cambridge, or any of those neighborhoods in Boston. New York versus Boston always brings out the best in all of us. And this season, it's brought the best out in these two teams. They sit a game and a half apart from each other between the 2 and the 3 seed this season. I know I speak for a lot of Knicks fans. I speak for myself for sure. I am very curious how the Knicks match up all these months and weeks later against the Boston Celtics, a team that comes in at 36-16. You wouldn't know it by some of the things that their fans say, although maybe that's dissipated. There was a 6-6 stretch where the sky was falling, and we were wondering if the Olympics mattered too much. But they're still a top offensive team, a top defensive team, a top net rating team, still leading the world in three-point attempts as well. You know what time it is. It's going to break it all down and to preview this matchup. Joining me from Hardwood Houdini is the name of the site. I apologize to the Hardwood Houdini peoples. And of course, the How About Them Celtics podcast, Jack Simone. Jack, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a long time. Like you said, the Knicks and Celtics haven't played each other in months for some reason, but we're here and I'm ready to go.
And we play each other 3 more times the rest of the season.
Yeah, there's
in fact, it's tomorrow, and then it's again in 2 weeks on the Sunday after the All-Star break. So we'll get 2 litmus tests right away. I believe the last game is in April, and things might be sewn up by then. So these 2 games, I think, will be a measuring stick. And look, the Knicks may not have OG Anunoby. He is probably going to be questionable for this game, and I doubt he will play. 3 days off, who knows? Drew Holiday didn't play last night because of what?
Who knows?
Okay. Let's start there. How healthy are the Celtics? Yeah.
I think the Celtics are less healthy than the day-to-day injury report leads on. Last night, Drew Holiday was officially out with, I'm trying to get the actual designation because who knows? Isn't really a good answer. Right shoulder impingement. Okay, that was my guess, but I wanted to make sure. So he's missed a bunch of time this year with random stuff, usually the shoulder. Jaylen Brown's missed some things. I think it was an elbow or a knee or something. Derek White's been a little banged up. It just feels like the wear and tear of playing all of last season and into the summer for a lot of them has caught up to them a little bit. Al Horford's a year older, and you can see it. Drew Holiday's a year older, and you can see it. Ironically, Kristaps has been pretty healthy for the last few weeks, so knock on wood that stays the truth, and Tatum's fine too, but they just feel a little banged up all season. Not banged up enough to not play, but banged up enough to pop up with the injury report every other night. So that's kind of where they're at.
And who should Knicks fans expect to see in this game on Saturday night?
I think they should probably all play. If I had to guess, I'd say the Celtics are fully healthy for that game, at least from a perspective of nobody will be on an injury report. Maybe they'll even get Torrey Craig for that game because they signed him too, so a new face. But if I had to guess, I think they will be fully healthy. You might see Drew, Jaylen, and somebody else is questionable, Hauser maybe because he's been hurt a lot. But then I think they end up all playing. So
I would again assume OG Anunoby's not playing. It wouldn't shock me if he decides to play. He sprained his foot last Saturday against the Lakers, and that was the biggest story in our lives until about an hour after the Lakers game. And then Luka Doncic got traded to the Lakers, and that became the biggest story in every NBA's fan's life. So we'll see. I personally hope they err on the more cautious side as much as I want to beat the Celtics and just see what the Knicks look like against the Celtics. OG Anunoby is very important, and I would be fine if he just sits 3 more games and then comes back after the All-Star break. But enough about injuries. I am curious from your perspective because you walk the line between Celtics fan and Celtics reporter. You do a good job covering the team, but I know where your heart is, of course. But
yeah,
the regression, we'll call it, and not significant regression. They're still on pace for 50+ wins. They're probably not going to hit their over this year, but they just beat the Cavs in a pretty thoroughly impressive victory the other night in Cleveland, giving them the tiebreaker for the season if the Cavs continue to regress themselves. But the word I've used when discussing the Celtics is beatable, but not in the sense of like, oh, we're gonna take them down. It's like, oh, last year they looked otherworldly,
Yeah.
and the playoffs they got some favorable matchups, but they dominated those favorable matchups. So my first question, just how beatable is the Celtics team this year?
I mean, I definitely think they're more beatable, if for no other fact that I do think they're a little bit more injured this year. I do think they haven't been as locked in as they were last year this year. So from that, they're not as good as they were last season. It's just objectively so. I mean, the record is like that, but I don't think that's because they are bad. I think that's because they set a insanely high standard that was going to be nearly impossible for them to meet last year. I mean, they won what 100 games and lost 19. Like it doesn't happen. Like that's not a normal thing. I try and do quick math in my head. I think that's correct.
They didn't win 100 games. They won 80 because they won 64 and then 16 in the playoffs.
Yes,
right?
sorry.
Yeah. But that's still 80 and
still
80 and 19
like,
is still a pretty
yes.
impressive season. Yeah.
Yeah. My point is like you don't get 60-win seasons every day, and you certainly don't get 16-3 runs in the playoffs every day. So that's an insane thing that happened that probably wasn't going to be replicated regardless, even if the Celtics did look as good as they were. Like that's very rare. But I do think they've been a lot less locked in at times this year. I think you're definitely getting a lot of that. We just won a championship. We probably don't care as much about the regular season mentality. I think you're getting some defensive inconsistencies. I think as much as people don't want to admit it, you're getting a lot of games where the Celtics just aren't shooting as well as they probably should have. Like the other day against the Sixers, they
hold on. Repeat that. Your Wi-Fi froze. You're getting a lot of games against the Celtics, and then you froze.
Yes. I heard my computer make a beeping noise, so I don't know if like one of my appliances just like cut out and then cut back in for Bluetooth. So that might have been it.
Okay.
But
so you're getting a lot of games that what?
You're getting a lot of games where it feels like either the other team is having a ridiculous shooting night or the Celtics aren't shooting as well as they probably should have. Like they beat the Sixers. They came back from down 26 the other day and they shot 28% on wide open or open shots in the first half and then 55% on those shots in the second half. Like you can't really get better shots than open or wide open shots. Like that's the whole goal. And if you shoot 28%, you're going to lose. Shoot 55%, you're going to win. And then you have nights where Klay Thompson had 25 last night and didn't miss a shot in like the first hat. A lot of tip your cap games, like Armand is saying. And like, but at the same time, like Dillon Brooks hit 10 threes against the Celtics, right? That's insane. Dillon Brooks has never hit 10 threes in an NBA game in his life. But the Celtics left him open. And so what do you expect if you leave a guy open? So there's like a blend of the Celtics need to do a better job of acknowledging what players are playing well and defending them with more pressure, but also like Dillon Brooks has 10 threes and there's a part of you that's just like, okay, what are we doing? Like, what's the point?
So to your point about the threes, one thing I did notice in some of the research is that the Celtics are 7th in 3-point attempts allowed per game. And then 3-point opponent percentage, they're also 7th. Now, that's like they allow some of the fewest, and they haven't been getting killed as much. But to your point, when they are getting killed, it's in that tendency. And it's funny because that actually is a thing I'm paying attention to from a Knicks perspective. The Knicks are allowing the 4th fewest 3-point attempts per game. Like they're really good at allowing as few threes as possible. They are dead last in 3-point percentage against this year. And when people are taking threes against the Knicks, they are making them, as we saw on opening night against Celtics. That is a trend that has continued throughout the season. So beatable, I guess, is like an unfair characterization because like comparing them to last year's team, of course, like that's a hard standard to live up to. I guess the more serious question I have about some of the outrage I've seen or how they've played this year against how the East is potentially a little bit better. How confident are you as a Celtics fan, and how confident are Celtics fans that they're still like going to be able to turn it on, kick it into gear come playoff time?
I think Celtics fans are like Knicks fans in the silliest way possible, and that is they will panic until they see the team do exactly what they want them to do. Like that's just how being a sports fan works. I think Philly's the same way. I think New York's the same way. I mean, LA is whatever. They're like half fans. But I think the people that really care, like like are in the trenches every day.
We
They see
live
their
and
team play
die
bad
with
one.
the,
Exactly.
these cold weather cities in the Northeast. They don't get it. If you have a bad game, bad Lakers game, you go outside, take a walk, you're good. I haven't been outside in weeks because it's freezing and we're due for a snowstorm next week. So I get it.
Yes.
The cold weather cities get it.
Yeah, exactly. But from my perspective, I've said this all year, and it's going to be a painful road because it's a long ways to the playoffs still. I'm not going to be worried about how the Celtics are going to play until I see them play this inconsistent in the playoffs. And again, that's like, okay, so then what's the point of the regular season? But you just saw them turn it on for an entire game, like you mentioned against the Cavs, right? Like they were on. You could tell they wanted to win that game, and because they wanted to win that game, they like turned it up a gear and they beat the best team in the NBA or one of the best teams in the NBA. And so I still think they're the best team in the NBA. I still think they should be the favorites to win the title. I think there are significantly more threats this year than there were last year. Then again, I thought there were threats last year, and they all lost to the Mavericks, which was embarrassing. But I still think the Celtics are probably the best team in the league. It's just the gap is smaller.
Gotcha. Look, I'm hoping it's smaller because the way things are headed, this is the second round matchup right now, Knicks against the Celtics, and like there are specific players that I'm curious about. Drew Holiday's regression from 3 stands out when you look at it, but then you have the Peyton Pritchard uptick in his performance this year. I mean, if I'm a Knicks fan watching this game, regression keeps being the word that I go to, but like what thing that's not as good as last year can I expect to be like, oh, that's going to show up against us too? Or is it just like fool's gold? So like of the guys that aren't what they were last year, and I mean, I'll throw Jaylen Brown into that. He is an all-star. I don't think he's going to be an all NBA candidate, but like what's the thing that seems to be like, oh, that's not coming back this year?
Yeah. Jaylen had a pretty rough start to the season. I think he's been a lot better lately. I see Jaylen as like the exception to the Celtics 3-point heavy offense. He kind of does his own thing, takes a lot of middies, takes a lot of drives, and that's upped his efficiency. So I think that's good for him. Drew and Al, I think just aren't what they were last year. And I say that, but Al Horford, I mean, he put up like 13 and 11 against the Cavs. Like he's going to do Al Horford things every once in a while. Yeah. But the night to night basis, like he's dropped less than 5 points and I think 6 of his last 7 games or something like that. Like he's not the same player he was. Drew Holiday's not the same player he was. Drew Holiday shot 60% from the corner last year. That's like the Celtics winning 64 games. You're not going to do that again. Like that's a very rare thing. So I think those guys' regression is real. That said, I think people are making a little bit too big of a deal out of Drew Holiday because I still think defensively he's extremely important. Like not only from an individual defense perspective, but he is very much, in my opinion, the glue that holds Celtics defense together, like communication wise and just getting everybody organized. Like I think he's very important from that perspective. But Peyton Pritchard's closed a few games this year over Drew Holiday. He's closed a couple games over Derek White this year, and Kristaps Porzingis has been playing a lot, and they don't run double bigs, and Al Horford hits the bench, or Luke Cornett closes the game because he's been really good, like unironically, like really, really good. So there are some things to watch from that perspective. I think the biggest signs of regression, in my opinion, are just Drew and Al, which at 34 and 38, 39, like just kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I very much hope that those signs show up on Saturday night at the Garden. I do very much hope that, look, I want to see it. I just want to see what the Knicks look like against the Celtics because I don't put much stock into opening night. The Celtics were recharged after a summer of being told what they weren't and the disrespect of the Olympics. And, they came in on ring night and it was awesome. And then the Knicks had literally just assembled their team 3 weeks ago after the Cat trade. But these teams are very close in the standings. And you did just see the Cavs the other day. And I guess teams in the East did make moves at this deadline. So this is where I ask you the question I usually ask you this year. But when you come on the pod at this point in the season, I should say, when you put in order the teams that scare you the most as a threat to dethrone the Celtics, and I'll include the West in here, where do the Knicks fall? And like, you can't say the Celtics. Yeah. I remember when you said that last year, the biggest threat to the Celtics losing is the Celtics. So
I still believe that, by the way.
That's fine. Like, I think there's a world for me where the biggest threat is the Knicks too, to the Knicks,
including the West, you said.
Yes, you can include the West. So the
Okay.
Thunder can be 1, and then we can move on to number 2.
I think the Thunder won. Yeah, Thunder won. They're unbelievable. After that it gets tough because the biggest thing with the Celtics is when they are on in full, like, we're going to try and pick the team apart and win this game. It is the killer whale offense that you probably heard a lot of like funny stories about last year, which is we are going to get the exact matchup we want on their weakest defender and then attack every single time relentlessly. It's what they did to Darius Garland a lot in the game the other night. It's what they did in the playoffs last year a lot. To Luka, it like they basically are all killer whales, and they make one person on the other defense the seal that they're trying to kill, and they just go at him. And so I think the Cavs have that in Darius Garland. Like, they have somebody that the Celtics can do that to. I think they would probably try to do it to Jalen Brunson a lot in a Knicks series, and I think Jalen Brunson's a better defender than Darius Garland, but I don't think he is Jrue Holiday, or I don't think he is Alex Caruso, or I don't think he's like one of these incredible defenders. He's a what's the word? Like a post in the ground that you can't really get by. Like he'll like body.
Yeah.
But they'll try to like switch KP on him in the post and try to like shoot over him and stuff like that. So I would probably put. I think the Knicks and the Cavs are pretty even keel for me. I'd probably be a bit more okay playing the Cavs. I think the Knicks would probably be 2 below the Thunder to me. So it'd be Thunder, Knicks, Cavs, just because the Cavs been great in the regular season. I just think the Celtics just can beat them in a playoff series. Like, I don't trust them. But I think the difference for me is they have a very regular season offense where in the playoffs, like when it gets down to the nitty gritty and you want to go to one thing, I don't really know what they'll go to. The Knicks have Cat, Brunson, pick and roll. Like they have something that they will just go to, and it will be really good. And the Celtics will have to try to stop it. And so I'd probably put them there. I'd put the Nuggets. I'd maybe even put the Nuggets above the Cavs too, just because Jokic is Jokic and he's incredible. And then I'll lump like Grizzlies, Rockets, and whatever like next, maybe Pacers because they gave the Celtics a scare. But I think I'd go Thunder, Knicks, Nuggets, or Nuggets, Knicks, one of those two, but probably Knicks, Nuggets.
There's a team you didn't say that I'm wondering if just they haven't been. No, just like the Los Angeles Lakers did just acquire Luka Doncic, and I for those listening, Jack just waved them off like Mike Francesa. Yeah. Look, the Lakers are 30-19. They are a stone's throw away from the 2 seed in the Western Conference. So there's a world if the Celtics are going to try and repeat, it's against LeBron and Luka in the finals.
You want to talk about seals on defense, man? They got a whole team.
They have a whole, but can these seals also attack you? Is what I'm saying. Can they slow down the pace enough?
They tried last year.
But they didn't have Luka last year. I know.
No, I'm saying Luka tried last year.
That's true. But instead of Kyrie, it's LeBron James now.
Yeah, I know. The Lakers don't scare me. I think the Lakers don't really have like. They have Mark Williams, who has played 50% of his NBA games as their new center. They don't really have any rim protection outside of that. They don't really have any perimeter defensive threats at all. Like the closest thing they have is Dorian Finney-Smith, who's good, but he's like more of a forward. They're a very incomplete team. I think they'll be very good for they'll make the playoffs for the next 10 years because they got Luka, because Nico Harrison is something. But right now with the defensive lineups they have, and I just don't see it.
Where were you when you found out about the trade?
In the bathroom.
Okay. Full disclosure, everybody.
Yeah. No.
I was at T Squared Social. We were wrapping up a pod we were recording there. It does feel like a where were you when? Because I think all of us had the same.
Yeah.
All of us had the same reaction. Shams, this isn't real. Shams got hacked. How much of a threat they are to the Celtics is like a whole different conversation than how good will they be. For me, I do actually think there's a world where they're the 2 seed and can actually
it could be good.
Have a legitimate chance to beat the Thunder in a 7-game series, and then we'll see what happens come finals time. As far as the Knicks are concerned, so you're thinking they'll attack Jalen Brunson a ton on Saturday, rather than because I actually would have thought,
but in a playoff series,
it depends
on how much they care about the game, which is a problem within itself. But that's
But is there, to that point, is there some advantage that the Celtics have that they already know what works because they won a title?
Yeah.
So they can hide some stuff for now and they don't need to show the Knicks the full playbook on Saturday, which is where the Knicks are at a disadvantage because I think the Knicks are going to want to information gather this Saturday and look for their seals if they could potentially.
Definitely. I mean, I think that'll definitely be an attempt for them. I think they'll try different things. A big part of I think the reason the Celtics have also struggled is teams know what they want to do a lot, like what they saw. They had all of last season to figure out what the Celtics might want to do. So they take away threes, they take away the corners, they take away, post ups a little bit. They take away Tatum. Teams double Tatum all the time this year. And I still don't think it's the best way to defend the Celtics because he has been so good at passing out of those double teams. But yeah, I think the Celtics could be hiding stuff for the playoffs, but until then, it's going to be pretty hard because teams are taking away threes and teams are taking away a lot of stuff. So I'd be curious to see what the Celtics do this game. I do think they'll attack Brunson a lot. I do think they'll probably attack, like if McBride's on the floor, they'll go after him. If a big not named, they'll probably go after Cat. They'll probably switch Tatum onto Cat a lot and say, Tatum, get by Cat and go from there. They'll probably guard Cat with Drew and try that so that when they run the pick and roll, Drew switches onto Brunson and they have Kristaps in the help spot to help over on a Cat roll. So I think you'll see a lot of different things. They've liked to guard Cat with Drew a lot in the past, so it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, he used to put Holiday on Randall in the past, and opening night it was the exact same thing. And look, Cat, he's still playing drop. It's hit and miss. So they played the Rockets on Monday, and it was a back and forth game for most of the game. Cat played drop for the entirety of it.
Yep.
And I don't have this on, like, I don't know if this is true, but the Knicks finally went small. Like I was honestly begging for them to go to this lineup with Deuce McBride at the 2 because Anunoby's out and they were playing Precious Achiuwa. Now that lineup works with Achiuwa and Cat as your 4 and 5. I was hoping they'd go small with Bridges. It just boosts your offense. Bridges, Hart, Deuce, and Jalen Brunson. And they scored 46 points in the quarter. But for most of the quarter, the Rockets were able to just like put Cat in a pick and roll, and then he was backing off, and then pick a floater or find the guy rolling, and he wasn't aggressive. I don't have it on authority that someone said something to him, but even I, like from watching, was like, Cat, put your hands up, be a little more aggressive. We just need stops here.
Yeah.
And then I have this tracked. The next 7 possessions, Cat got 3 huge stops that helped the Knicks eventually turn the tide and win the game. Those other 4 possessions were fouls. Like he fouled out, like got 4 fouls in 5 minutes and got fouled out after that fourth quarter. But that's where I wonder in a game like this, where I assume they're going to do the exact same thing to Cat in this. And he likes to be a little bit more conservative with his defense because he has a bit of a foul problem. And it's either 2 early fouls or the Celtics have 5 threes in the first 5 minutes. Excuse me, it's the Celtics, or 5 threes in the first minute and a half. Is that how you think they'll attack? That's why. So not counting Brunson, they'll attack Cat and drop consistently this game. Then
100%. Yeah, I think they'll either do that or they'll do the thing where whoever's guarding Tatum, it'll probably be like Bridges. They'll bring whoever's guarding Cat into the screen. It'll probably be Porzingis, and if the Knicks switch, Tatum will do his old dribble back out all the way to the corner of the half court and then dribble and try to get around him. And then when the Knicks inevitably have to send help, he'll find the open guy, and that's how they get a shot. Or it'll be they run the pick and roll. Porzingis spaces out, Cat's in drop, and they'll either have a one-on-one with Cat, and Tatum will do is like behind the back pass to Porzingis for a 3 that's like 5 feet behind the line because that's where he takes him now. But they will try to go after Cat in the sense of whether it's trying to get him on the perimeter or getting him in drop where they can drive at him and try to get him in foul trouble. That will probably be their secondary thing. Because like as good as Cat and Brunson are, I don't think they're like bad defenders. They're just probably the worst ones on the floor because everyone else is so good.
They're limited is what I would say. With Cat, it's a discipline thing where if you're going to play that drop, you got 2 feet in the paint. If you're a bit higher, teams can get you jumping and then draw fouls as a result. With Brunson, I actually do want the Knicks to leave him on an island a little bit more. I don't think he's been taken advantage as much this year when trusted. The offensive fouls he draws are just a weapon that he's second or third in the league in charges. You add in that over the last couple games when they've left him on said island, he's drawn like some steals because he's like the closest to the floor. So go ahead, dribble around Jalen Brunson. He'll probably poke one out. Is he Derek White? Is he Alex Caruso? No, but I think he's better than his reputation gives him, so I guess we'll see what happens. Ben Kim Gervy puts in the chat, as a wing defender, he's pretty good, talking about Cat. I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's pretty good. I do understand what you're saying. There's been possessions where Cat, if he's hedging or coming up to the level on the screen, that it's effective. I mean that also just takes him away from the biggest tool he has on the defensive end, and it's rebounding. Like you have one chance at a shot
monster
on a possession, like when he's on the floor, the offensive rebounding rate is insane. Oh, you know what? They're talking about something else. Sorry, GMAC. We're talking about DeAndre Hunter. I apologize. He wasn't talking about Cat.
DeAndre Hunter is pretty good. He's a pretty good wing defender. I'll give you
very good wing defender. So here's the question that he initially asked that sparked a debate in the chat. The Cavs just made a move directed at playing the Celtics and acquiring DeAndre Hunter. Knicks rebuilt over the summer in part for that reason. Celtics unchanged. Is that a concern?
Not really, because one, the Celtics, they can't change, right? Like just the CBA trading, like the Celtics
second apron's a thing. Yeah.
The Celtics changing would require them to trade one of their top 5 players, and their top 5 players are what makes them the reason teams change. Like that's what makes them so good. And 2, no, I think they are good enough. If they're good enough to make other teams change to beat them, then I don't think the Celtics need to change themselves. Like I think that's the whole point. I think they'll be fine. I think there's a chance they lose because it's the NBA and every team is really, really good. And that's just the reality of how professional basketball is. I still think they're the best team. I still think they have the most talent. I still think they have the most versatility. And I'll lead there. I think Hunter's a good player. I think he'll help the Cavs. I don't think he is this like Scottie Pippen who's going to come in there and shut down Tatum or Jaylen Brown and win them a series. I think he's better than Isaac Okoro because he's a capable 3-point shooter, so they can keep him on the floor a little bit more. So I definitely love the move for the Cavs. I think he's really good, and I think he'll help them. But I still think the Celtics are probably the best team in the Eastern Conference.
So 2 questions before I let you get out of here. First one, I ask this every time you're here, and I'm wondering if the answer is different because the Celtics are coming off a title. What does a disappointing end to this season look like for the Celtics?
No championship. If they don't win a championship, if they don't win a title, it's just a disappointing season. I mean,
you lose in 7 to this Thunder team that has a 13 net rating. It's still disappointing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's obviously levels. Like you'd be significantly more disappointed if they lost in the second round or the conference finals, and no champion since 2018 has made it past the second round of the playoffs, which is like pretty big bar. And if that would be a truly disappointing season. But yeah, I think if Kristaps Porzingis, I read this chat. If the Celtics lose in the finals, it is still a disappointing season because the expectation was an even better season than last year, and that's already out the window. And anything less than championship falls under that category too.
To that question that popped up in the chat, Armand Burdenage, are they more susceptible to a KP injury this year than last year? Obviously, Porzingis went down the first round last year, came back in the finals, didn't really play much in the playoffs, and it didn't matter. Celtics went 16-3. So are they more susceptible if he were to go down in the first round this year?
Yeah, I think they definitely are. I think Al Horford's not quite where he was last year. Then again, like I'm never going to count out Horford magic because he always just seems to be good again when the playoffs come around. And I don't know when that's going to end. And I'm sure a lot of franchises around the NBA are hoping it ends this year and hoping it ends soon. But Al Horford's Al Horford, so maybe he'll just be good again. I do think another small thing, as silly as this sounds to anyone who doesn't watch the Celtics on a night-to-night basis, Luke Cornett was hurt in the playoffs a lot last year, and he's been really good. Like he's been able to give them a lot of minutes this year, and having him, I think, will be a bigger boost than a lot of people realize come postseason.
You know how annoyed I'm going to be if put Saturday aside, like put this matchup aside. If the Knicks get to a matchup against the Celtics in the second round and KP's hurt and Al Horford's washed, but Luke Cornett is the thing that stops the Knicks from getting to the conference finals. You know, like how mad I'm gonna be, Jack.
The funniest part is like he's just gonna like kill you with passes out of the short roll. Like he's been an unbelievable passer this year, and like that being the first thing I reference as like Luke Cornett's strongest asset is just insane, right? That and his offensive rebounds are just like the biggest things. And Cat will probably nullify some of that boards, but they run a pick and roll. They're going to blitz Tatum. Tatum's going to dump it to Cornet, and he's going to kick it to a corner for a three. And that's what happens every single time. Every single time.
I do wonder how much the Knicks would actually double Tatum, though. Like, the whole reason you get Anunoby and Bridges is so that you can match up. And look, the Bridges thing was a thing for 2 months. He has been outstanding. For the last, like, since December 1st, he's just been incredible. And the defense is starting to show up, and the wing stop agenda is starting to be pushed. So I'm like, obviously we probably won't see it on Saturday night, depending what Anunoby plays. But that's the thing I'm hoping the Knicks are able to do, is that you're not allowing the Celtics to play 4-on-3 and have those short roll situations, because you don't have to play at disadvantages like that. So I guess we'll see. Last question. Any Knicks thoughts and your questions about the Knicks? Obviously I'm sure there's a lot of New Yorkers in your life that are annoying, and you tell me, like, what are your questions about the Knicks?
One of my roommates is I don't want to call him like full on Knicks, but he's from Jersey, so he picked the Knicks. He's like a Knicks guy. He doesn't follow like the NBA a ton, but if he is going to root for a basketball team, it will be the Knicks, basically. But Knicks questions. If a team, and I assume the Celtics could be this team, fight to take away a Brunson Cat like scoring, right? Like the Celtics will just try to not let Jalen Brunson kill them. They'll try to not let Cat kill them. Like they will leave somebody. They'll leave Josh Hart open. They'll leave somebody open. Like that is what they've done all season. How confident are you that whether it's Josh Hart or Bridges or everyone else will make those shots and be able to make up for the Celtics trying to nullify Brunson and Cat?
You bring up the correct way to frame it. Like, how much will an open Josh Hart, an open Mikal Bridges, an open OG Anunoby, and when they've lost this year, it does feel like it's like the uncharacteristic 1-for-8 OG Anunoby. Like, he went through a shooting slump, the Anunoby 3-pointers. Josh Hart,
like that with D White for the Celtics.
So like Josh Hart was shooting 40% for points this year. Now he's hit his slump and has also become a more hesitant shooter, which is what you don't want. Look, this may be ignorant to say, Josh Hart has hit so many big playoff threes in my life. Like, in my life, it's been 2 years, but in my life, and I'm 36 years old, and for 2 of those years, I've seen more Josh Hart threes that have like clinched playoff wins, clinched playoff series. That, go ahead, leave them open at this point. The Sixers did it at their own peril. The Cavs did it at their own peril. Every team, like it's really just the Heat that were able to do it at their own peril, and then it worked because the devil,
hate the Heat.
Yeah. But like, so I'm very okay with Josh Hart taking the big threes if they need him. Mikal Bridges, it's wait and see. I think he's started to show some big shot chops lately. His one-on-one creation too, especially when he gets out in transition. Hart now has a transition buddy to get out on the run with him. Hasn't really had that since they traded Obi Toppin. And Anunoby, I mean, it's a game-to-game thing, but if he's on, we're looking at a 5-for-7, 5-for-8 night from Anunoby. So yeah. I'm confident, and that's really the biggest difference with the Knicks last year. It's like, you got to hope Josh Hart has it tonight, because if he doesn't, then it's like they've shut off Jalen's water, and hopefully DiVincenzo can get his 13 threes up. Now they've got 5 threats, and Deuce obviously still taking 40% from 3. Campaign, it's a possession to possession roller coaster, not even a night to night roller coaster. But they have options that I think can maximize their 3-point shooting. And Tibbs, look, a lot's been made about the minutes this year and some of the tendencies he has that are a bit more rigid, like going to Precious Achiuwa at the 4 and not even experimenting, because he with the, I shouldn't say experimenting, not giving us enough of a look at the McBride starting 5 with Anunoby down. How creative he's been on the offensive end, the cutting that's involved, the ball movement, the Chicago gut sets that start on the wing and then get guys going downhill to create open looks, how he's using Cat's stretch 5 impact and gravity to create looks for everybody else, that where he has a playbook that's Cat at the top of the key, finding guys open. I mean, it's been a very, they're top 3 in offense because of their talent, but
Yeah.
also because the coach is doing a great job maximizing their talent. So this is, I mean, it's really not to me so much can the Celtics stop the Knicks. It's like can the Knicks stop the Celtics enough that their offense can impact it enough, you know? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only other thing I had is it's sort of a twofold question. One, are you worried that the minutes could catch up like they did last year, or do you think all of the players that were more injury prone are gone? And two, if it comes to that, because I know the bench isn't going to play much of the playoffs with Tibbs anyways, are you confident in the bench to play real minutes?
Did the minutes catch up to them last year?
Whatever it was, if it was freak things, like they had nicks and bruises throughout the playoffs that like, Ihart's a little hurt here. Randall was out for the whole thing, but they played well without him regardless. Like they had guys go down where other guys had to step up. So I just like generally like how confident are you in this team staying healthy for an entire playoff run? And then the bench, if they have to play, how confident are you in the bench?
The bench, I have very little confidence. I'll start there. I trust Deuce McBride. I trust Mr. Robinson if he comes back. We'll see if they could find an eighth guy that's worthy of playing. I think Landry Shamit's been banished to the Cam Reddish zone.
Sure.
I'll stand on this. They ran out of bodies last year because injury-prone players got hurt. Like Mitchell Robinson, an injury-prone player, got hurt. And not to mention, Joel Embiid is a dirty, dirty man.
Yes.
And literally pulled him when he was up in the air and then just dove at his ankles on several other plays throughout that series, and then he got hurt, and he's still out since then. Anunoby has not been the beacon of availability throughout his playoffs, and yes, like he did have a soft tissue injury, but this is a guy that like played 23 games for the Knicks over the past 3 months, so he was well rested going into the playoffs, and then like a freak injury happened. Josh Hart got elbowed in the stomach in the first quarter of a game, you know, so I don't think like Bojan Bogdanović even got rolled over. Guess who? Joel Embiid. In a playoff game, and it like fucked up his ankle. So the injuries last year, I think, got made a lot of because of who the coach is. I think if they happen, like, is JB Bickerstaff a bad head coach or bad with minutes because Donovan Mitchell and all their guys got hurt too? So I think it's within context. Your point about this season. The minutes did get a little crazy. They did not have a lot of dependable options on the bench, and it became just about like, look at the long term. Actually, in hindsight, like I did not want them to lose games to Washington and whoever in the course of a week schedule in December. My best answer is we'll see. Like if it's clear that it's not so much that the injuries happen, but that they clearly look out of gas in the playoffs, then maybe you reevaluate. But like this is a thing we talk about. This is a thing fans talk about. Like the team embraces this. So as far as I'm concerned, they have the number one doctor in the country overseeing their medical staff and all these minutes and all their injuries. They don't practice. And that's honestly one of my bigger gripes is that they don't practice so that they can play a ton of minutes. And a lot of times, Jack, they look like a team that hasn't practiced in weeks. And it's like, oh, wow, you know what? You should probably play less minutes and then go practice one day.
Practice. Yeah.
You know, so.
Are you as Ariel Hukporti obsessed as your chat is? Are you a big Ariel Hukporti guy?
I like him. This happens with every young player that gets playing time and looks good for a game for the Knicks.
Yeah.
I hope he gets minutes. I think the trading of Jericho Sims is an endorsement for Ariel Hukporti. I think the minutes you're going to see with him and Kat on Saturday night are
they play double big?
Yeah, they play double big, and it's
fun.
the first time we've seen that, which I think is a precursor for when Mitch comes back. You know,
you're going to see a lot of Cornet, Porzingis, Cornet, Horford minutes too.
Well, there you go. You match that up perfectly. I also see. Apparently, this is the Tibbs conversation that I go through like on a daily basis. If you're critical of him, why do you hate the head coach? We haven't had a good head coach in 2 decades. What's wrong with you? If you praise him, why do you love the head coach? Why are you a Tibbs defender? He's Mark Jackson. Blah blah blah. And like, I can't just like think he's a really good coach and has some flaws, but like. I'm okay with him being the head coach.
Joe Mazzulla convo. Yeah.
Because you don't, it's honestly every head coach convo. Like this is literally every 100%. Head coach in the NBA. When I talk to Miami Heat fans, the fans being the operative word, right? Yes. And you see the Spo slander. It's like, no coach is immune to this.
No coach is immune
to any of this. No. So Anyway, Jack, it is always good to see you.
Yes, sir.
I hope you have a miserable time at Madison Square Garden on Saturday night. Before you get out of here, please let the fine folks at home know where they can find you and all of your work.
Yes. All my writing is at hardwoodhoudini.com. You can find me on Twitter, JacksonMonNBA, and then I host a podcast called How About Them Celtics, which is on YouTube, all that stuff, if any Knicks fans want to listen to a Celtics podcast. I'm also on Twitter or TikTok, at JacksonMonNBA. If you want to look, I do some like TikTok stuff and behind the scenes stuff that I've been trying to do more of lately, which is more general. So it's not just like there is Celtics content there, but there's like more like stuff that other people would enjoy too.
Yeah, the TikTok stuff is a flex. Like it very much is a flex. It's the I'm walking out of my apartment to go to the TD Bank to watch the Celtics because I cover the Celtics, and it's like the step by step. Like this is me walking out of my apartment. This is me getting on this train. This is me pulling up to the arena. This is me going in through the press entrance. And I'm just like, oh, I'm continuing to watch because I want to see more.
Yeah, I know.
But the best is when you're like,
Real
this is me at the bus stop. Then all of a sudden, this is Jason Tatum. I was like, oh, that came out of nowhere. That escalated quickly.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So follow Jack on TikTok. Follow the How About them Celtics boys. We've been known here in Knicks Land to invade a post game show. If the Knicks win, which is why I'm hoping you get invaded on Saturday. But of course, leave them alone if they win, because we don't want to talk to them after this. And hopefully this Saturday, that's true. It can happen. The trade deadline happened. No earth-shattering trades that don't make sense happen afterwards, so we'll see what happens. Jack, as always, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining me, and thank you to everybody that tuned in for another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. If you dug it, please head over to iTunes, drop a 5-star rating and a review. Been talking about it all week. Please join us tomorrow night at T-Squared Social for this Knicks matchup against the Boston Celtics. We'll be there at 7:30, hopefully hanging out with all of you, getting your good spots, getting your drinks, getting your food. Be there or be T-Squared. Hopefully we reverse the curse in this matchup on Saturday night. And just a programming note, it's about 12:44 on Saturday. On Friday in the afternoon. Tune in for Casual Friday Live with Jeff J in an hour and 15 minutes. He's going to be on this live stream on this same YouTube channel at 2:00, recapping the week, going through everything the Knicks did or didn't do at the NBA trade deadline. So stay tuned for that. As far as I'm concerned, if you dug the show, head over to iTunes, drop a 5-star rating and a review. Like this channel. Remember to subscribe. About 650 away from 20K. So please help us on our road there. I'll be back on Monday to preview the Knicks matchup against the Indiana Pacers. It's a Monday night live stream, so stay tuned for that. But until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the game tonight, and I'll speak with you soon. Peace.